Theme song in 3, 2, 1. And welcome back to LinkedIn Logs, the business podcast for cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. I'm your host, Chad White. Here we are doing a on-time episode of the show. How many times can I say I've done that? I mean, for this show specifically, sometimes. Even the times when I didn't have a job, sometimes. Here we are, episode 23, recording in the morning this comes out, and that's it. That's all I got. What's been going on? There have not been a lot of jobs, and well, at least for my sector, there have not been a lot of jobs as of lately to post about. In fact, I think a lot of people have gotten laid off. I'm seeing a lot of people who I don't know, but they are in my industry and they're popping up on my LinkedIn feed as I'm scrolling through right now. This is why I'm not looking at the camera. I'm not being rude. As I'm scrolling through, I'm just seeing a lot of the BS stuff. I had a job for 20 years and then I was laid off and now I can't find a job in a month. It's so difficult. It's only been a month. I've got $100,000 severance. And you're complaining? Jesus. Anyway, but I'm seeing a lot of people within the entertainment industry not leaving of their own accord. I'm seeing a lot of people just kind of get off of the not have jobs anymore. That's how it happens. Not have jobs. Get off. He got off. What happened? What happened to him? Oh, he got off. He got off hard. It was so sad. Steven got off? Yeah, man, Steven got off. What about Melanie? Melanie got off too? Oh, Melanie got off the hardest of everybody. This is a clean show. At least it tries to be. I don't run this rules. Run this rules. And then you have LinkedIn begging you to pay for premium. My shoulders are too high. I had to lower them down. Begging me to reactivate. Chad, these jobs will be great for you, buddy. I'll tell you. My LinkedIn sounds like Bill Clinton. Chad, these jobs would be great for you. I did not inhale. Today's jokes are very topical. I can't wait to do my Zima bit for you. Okay. All right. Too much joking around. One thing I will say about LinkedIn that's incredibly annoying besides the people posting, but the jobs that they're offering, at least for me, I'm a producer, writer, editor, whatever, television. Every job that is under my jobs tab right now, if they aren't in Florida or New York, which is fine, because at least those are the jobs they are, then they're not even the right jobs. It'd be like producer at Chechen's farm, you know? You'll be producing 17 eggs an hour. Me? There's a couple of trailer editor / screenwriter, but it's on site in Sarasota, Florida, so that I'm not doing that. It's ridiculous. The website Game Rant has a remote weekends feature writer. I've been to Game Rant. Their features aren't good. I'm gonna start calling people out. I think it's fun. Shout out to I'm still holding a grudge. Shout out to the recruiter from last week, from 2 weeks ago, who told me my 10 years of experience producing and writing is still not enough for a a ticker writing position at CNN. You know who you are. You keep posting on LinkedIn all this BS about mental health and accepting yourself, and yet you ghosted me. You told me you don't have enough skills. I wrote back, hey man, so here's what I've done, blah 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 blah, and then you ghosted me. Shout out. You deserve it. I love how you post every single day on LinkedIn, sometimes twice, talking about mental health and helping others and wanting to be there and how we can reach out to you. You're so nice. I love it. I hope you hear this. That part was not a joke. I do hope you hear this. But let's get to I mentioned layoffs, people getting laid off. And now this is not my industry, but it is relevant to my industry because I would say it's adjacent. I went to school with a couple of adjacents. That's the last one. I'm done. This comes from Variety, written by Todd Spangler, Snapchat parent to lay off 10% of workforce, about 540 employees. I'm going to turn up the volume just a little bit. It's not often that I listen to any of the shows I do, but I noticed I was cutting a video for TikTok. This is ridiculous. I hate saying those words. I hated that entire last half of the sentence. The sentence fragment. It was after the comma. Before the period. And I had 1 cup of coffee. And it was half a cup. The rest is sitting in the microwave. I want to have it right before I go to work, so I don't have to carry a Yeti with me. And what was I talking about? Oh, and the sound was peaking, and I don't do any editing to the audio. And I know I also sit close to the mic, I was trying a new mic position then, but I'm changing up. Whatever. Who gives a crap? Who gives a hoot? Snapchat parent to lay off 10% of the workforce, which is about 540 employees. Now, believe it or not, Snapchat has been doing decently. Has been. In 2022, they laid off 20% of this workforce. It's about 1,300 people. And they did things like cancel Snapchat original series because that stuff costs money. November 2023, it laid off a small group of people, about 20 people. They're trying to be profitable. There was, again, I mentioned this before. I mentioned this before, it was like 3 seconds ago. There were points in Snapchat's history when they've been on the downslope, and then in the past couple of years, they've been on the upslope. And then, besides the layoffs, they've been doing relatively well. I think they did just recall all of their drones that they sold. These tiny little, I'm looking for something that can be the size. Imagine this, but there's 4. and there's 4 propellers, and it is shaped like a box, and it flies around like this, and it'll take your little snaps for you. I mean, and even saying that, they had those glasses, those snap glasses, which they sold a first iteration of it, and then they went away, and you can only get them in like vending machines. And then the second iteration they brought back, and then I haven't heard anything about those as of late. Meta has those Ray-Ban sunglasses that have the camera right there, and I just heard Joanna Stern talking to Kara Swisher on the podcast On. I think that's what it's called. I listened to it. On with Kara Swisher. Kara Swisher had her on the show, had Joanna Stern, Nilay Patel from The Verge, and Mark Gurman. And they were all talking about the Apple Vision Pro. And in Joanna Stern's video review for the Apple Vision Pro on Wall Street Journal, she wore the Apple Vision Pro for 24 hours straight. She even went skiing in them. And she mentioned in this round table for Kara Swisher's podcast that she prefer, instead of, people take videos of themselves skiing, whatever. And obviously it is very dangerous to use the Apple Vision Pro while in movement, but YouTubers are doing that. But she uses the Facebook Ray-Bans the Meta Ray-Bans to take videos of her kids, to just like record that video, goes directly to her phone while they're skiing. And that makes sense, and that's what the Apple Vision Pro and that's why, you know, Snap had these drones and stuff like that. This is all a huge digression. I just wanted to show off that I know this. Snap said that as a result of the layoffs announced Monday, it estimates the company will incur pre-tax charges of $55 to $75 million, primarily consisting of severance and related costs, and other charges, of which $45 to $55 million are expected to be future cash expenditures. So does that mean a minimum of almost $100 million? Including pre-taxes and okay, whatever. The majority of these costs are expected to be incurred in the first quarter of 2024. I don't know how the tech industry works. I do see it ebbing and flowing the same way that the entertainment industry works. And it's just, and it all seems kind of broken to me, the way that they that everybody seems to be doing this. This comes from the Hollywood Reporter, written by Lachlan Cartwright. CNN this morning, moving to Atlanta, staffers asked to reapply for jobs. Let me tell you how CNN works. There are 3 main hubs: Atlanta, New York, DC. That's where a majority of the shows are shot. There's stuff in LA, obviously. There's partners all over the United States. They're a partner just in the same way that NBC and CBS and Fox and ABC all have affiliates basically throughout the United States. CNN also partners with local affiliates too. Then there's bases in London. There's bases in Africa. There's bases in near Russia, in China, and Japan, and things like that. I'm not sure about Australia. I know when I was at CNN, there was a huge map on the wall, and they had where things were, and there was a lot around the world. I'm talking about there's a lot of bureaus, and a lot of the shows were produced out of Atlanta. They were, let's say, you know, the show I worked on, the 10 a.m. right? I think 9 a.m. Excuse me, 9 a.m. The 9 to noon, the 1 to 4, some of the afternoon and evening shows, a lot of the international shows, and CNN Espanol. And then there were some DC shows in the afternoons, like I think Wolf Blitzer's show, Tapper's show, and then New York shows, which were like the 10 p.m.s and all that stuff, the 9 p.m.s, the 8 to 10 or whatever, 8 to 11. Who cares? I don't give a hoot. But the show, you know, I mean, you know, that all of that said, a lot of the shows they're being produced in Atlanta, but they're shot in New York, or they're being produced in Atlanta, or they're shot in DC. It's not often that something was produced in New York and shot here. Why would you do that? CNN This Morning is the show with Poppy Harlow. I want to say just Poppy Harlow, because they should not have hired Phil Mattingly for that job. They should have had. When there were times, if you remember the show, that's a show that Caitlin Collins, Poppy Harlow, and Don Lemon were on. Then Don gets in trouble. He gets fired. Caitlin goes to her own 9 p.m. show. Then Poppy's left with not a round table, a guest host for a little bit. And instead of putting her with literally anybody else, they put her with Phil Mattingly, who is not a bad news person. But do we need 2 white people in the morning giving their thoughts on the world news? You had this great diverse show with Caitlin and Don. I would have just tried to, first of all, it's too many people. You should have just had 2 people. But it definitely should have followed along those lines. Put her with a woman of color. Audie Cornish should have been in that job. She guest hosted a couple of times. Should have been in that job. Could have gotten anybody else and it would have been fine. But it just became such a milquetoast show. And that is an insult. I want CNN and Mark Thompson. I want them to take that. I'll never be back there, apparently. Christ, I've been applying for jobs like crazy. I'm up Schitt's Creek, man. Now that show is being canned All those people, so that show was produced in New York, produced and shot in New York. All those people, about 50 people, are being asked to reapply for jobs within the network. And let me tell you, I when I was there, I was applying for jobs in the network. You think I got a call back? No. You think I got an answer on my emails? I had one recruiter go, "You just got here." I know her name. I was gonna say her name. I was gonna say it, but I'm not gonna say it. I remember everybody's name who ever slighted me. And she said, I applied for a job and I emailed her, and she's like, "You just got here. Like, you shouldn't be applying for jobs. That's wrong." And I went, "Excuse me?" That is insane. I'm 30 years old. I'm doing this small time job. You don't ever say that to somebody. Anyway, that's why she's a recruiter and I have the creative job. Anyway, I don't feel bad about saying that. So CNN this morning is being rebranded the early start show. The early start show is a show that starts at 5 a.m. That's hosted by Cassie Hunt. That's now going to be extended by an hour, and that's becoming CNN this morning. The show I worked on, 9 to noon, was CNN News Central with Kate Baldwin, who is the coolest person. I love Kate Baldwin. She's so funny. What's his name? John Berman and Sarah Seidner, which I think is a good team of people. It's the only time that they just grouped random people together, and I thought that was pretty good. So that's just staying CNN News Central. So that's 9 to noon, but now it's being moved up to 7 a.m., 7 to 10. And then Jim Acosta is coming on at 10, and there's a Wolf Blitzer show. Excuse me, not Wolf Blitzer. There's a show that Wolf Blitzer is going to be hosting for a little bit. He's going to be guest hosting. And then the anchor who is pregnant, I believe, she'll be joining later. She'll be taking over the show later. I can't seem to find that information because now I feel like a butt. And that production team for the 7 to 10 CNN News Central will be based in Atlanta. And I know that screws up a lot of people's schedules, but that's what happens. So Jim Acosta is taking 10 and 11. 10, and then Pam Brown is taking her. It has a show called The Bulletin at 11. This is the way that they did this. Mark Thompson, take the blame. The way that this has been done has been all kinds of screwy. There has been no semblance of what is going on, like a plan at CNN. When Chris Licht came in, he, for better or worse, was changing things around, but there seemed to be something in mind. And even if it was David Zaslav's future of a center right, because that's what he is. He's a guy on the right, of a center right, just like Bob Chapek, 24-hour news channel. At least that was what was coming into fruition. Like, we saw what was going on. We knew this was going to happen, and this was going to happen, and this was going to happen. But under Mark Thompson, just because he's a smart guy doesn't mean he knows what he's doing. What he did at he was at the New York Times before he was at CNN. Now, what he did at the New York Times was he took everything digital. Hold on, let me see. Let me triple check, because I don't want to be the wrong person to say that. Okay. So he was at New York Times and the BBC, and he did kind of help bring them to a good steady plane. I'm reading a New York Times article from John Coblin, Benjamin Mullen, and Katie Robertson. Excuse me, I just dropped the T. So he joined New York Times in 2012. And he helped revitalize the company financially by expanding its digital subscriptions. Yes. Which was still in its infancy before then. And yeah, it was, because they were still doing, the paper was the main focus. They didn't have a lot of video, or a lot of good video, or consistent video, rather. And then he started at BBC in 1979 and became the director general in 2004. He ran the editorial and business operations in that role, which is the same thing he's doing at CNN. So he helped make two big news organizations what they are today. The difference is he was at BBC in the early 2000s when when cable news was in its infancy. It had just began in more or less ways. It wasn't what it is today. Which is to say, kind of a mess. News shouldn't go. It should go at 5 a.m. during the week, 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's it. Local time. And then on the weekends, it should be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 8 p.m. Whatever. We don't need news shows on at 9 p.m. at night. But right now, CNN is in a point where they can't. I don't think that they can keep making these types of mistakes and moves because it just seems like you don't know what you're doing. Start trying to launch CNN Plus and then axing it 2 weeks in. Don't go through with the launch. Just go, hey, we're not doing the CNN Plus thing. That's not going to work. Switching around the morning show, they haven't had a stable morning set of hours, broadcast hours, for 2.5, 3 years. Probably less time than that. I'm giving them a grace period. CNN is becoming a homunculus. What's that thing on Full Metal Alchemist? A homunculus. A homunculus. I'm going to keep saying it. Homunculus. I'm sure one of those is correct. One of those pronunciations is correct. This is not ensnared confidence for. I mean, truly, if I still worked there, I would be worried about my position because all of those jobs are now moving to Atlanta. Are those people trying to stay in the organization? Because they have to reapply for those jobs. So are those people going to stay in the organization? Are they going to go somewhere else? Is this the final straw? Are people going to continue to trust in CNN that this working there, that people are working there, going to continue to trust in CNN that this is going to be a stable career? Because everybody I know that was nice to me and worked there, they've been there for decades, truly, so long. And everybody I know that was not nice to me had been there for a very long time too. But that didn't stop them from being rude. And then also everybody I know that that's like 22 years old and this is their first job. Just, you know what I was doing? I was working in a factory, serving tables. You just graduated. Anyway, sorry. I don't think any of this would be because I do think Poppy is a great person to lead a show, and she should have been paired with somebody that didn't look like her or a kissing cousin. I like Phil Madley. I think he's a fine broadcaster. I don't think he should be leading a show. It's like when they brought in Josh Myers on that 70s show, and that's not a dig. I do like Josh Myers. Just saying he couldn't lead that show. Like if he started on that show wouldn't have lasted as long. That's what I'm saying. Didn't that show last that 70 show last 2 more seasons after Topher left? Anyway, that's it. That's all I want to say. Listen, if you like what you heard here, head to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where you can subscribe to the other podcasts, the Constitutionals podcast, as well as, which is the entertainment business news show, as well as, the late night talk show. The what? You can watch video, subscribe to wherever you get your podcast. You can watch video of those shows on youtube.com/C plus comedy. You can watch me talk to all your favorite comedians and entertainment personalities under the interviews on youtube.com/C plus comedy, on cpluscomedy.com. Follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook @C plus comedy, me @Chad Black White. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. And we'll see you later.